Can be reached at 561-319-5533 or Tom at TrentoVision.tv. Listen and watch every weekday from 3 to 6 p.m. on AM 1470 WNN and TrentoVision.tv. Now, let's get a peek at Tom's view of the world. Here's Tom Trento.
Hey, you're still back there. I didn't know you were going to be here. I thought just one gig. The whole night. This is great, man.
We got the boss in
We got the
charge.
boss back there. Yeah. Hey, it is 6 minutes past the hour. The hour in Florida is 5, and other places it's a different hour. Where'd you grow up, Slade?
Miami.
Oh, okay. So it's the same hour where you grew up. It's on the East Coast. We're on TrentoVision.tv. We have a special guest in studio. We just had another special guest who was in here leave. We feed our guys and ladies, and we even have a restroom facility. We have everything up here on the 50th floor of the Beasley Broadcasting Company. We're on WNN 1470. For those of you driving in your automobile, you're listening, so you know this already, but you can tell your friends it's on the right-hand side of the dial. Just punch it in. You got to get iHeartRadio, the application for your iPhone or your Android or Google phones or Samsungs or whatever other phones. That was pretty cool. Whatever phones they have out there. Slade flew in. Slade O'Brien.
Will it work
flew
on
in.
Obama phones?
Obama phones. Yeah, I think it. You know what? I think if you put our show on an Obama phone, it explodes. It melts. Or the FBI will be here, tracked back or something. In any event, I'm right here, Tom Trento. CJ is back, healthy. We all missed you. Your fans missed you and everything. And
Thanks, Mom.
yes, your fan missed you. When you're on good terms with folks out there, and everybody loves you. J. Mark Campbell, who's gotten beat up by Union thugs. He's with us. Say hello, Mark.
Hello, and my disembodied head contribution fund is not increased over the hour. Just
It
like
has
everybody,
not?
It is not. So I gotta track that.
Well,
closely.
today's 12/12/12. It's December 12th, 2012, 12/12/12. And Mark wants to be alive when it's 12/12/12 again, which is in 100 years. So we're going to freeze his head, and we're raising money on this show to do that. So, Slade, you can leave a donation. Freeze Mark's head.
Bag of ice in the cooler.
We're going to shortcut the whole cryogenic. And we have Invisible Mike. Who's our traffic report guy.
Yeah. What
As
is
you
the
know,
traffic report?
we need a weather and a traffic report.
well, not yet. In a sec. All right, go ahead. Do the weather and the traffic. It's hot in here. It's 77 degrees inside the studio. I don't know. We need. Here's the problem. I function best at 73.
Oh.
I get a little woozy. We need a union to organize the talk show hosts against the management to keep the temperature down.
Yeah,
How about that? How about that?
that's all for that.
Okay? See, that's what unions do. Because you got guys like him and a guy over there. They run this place. They don't care it's 77 degrees in here. Don't you feel warm in here? How are we supposed to function that
I
way?
thought I was just hot stuff.
How are we supposed to function?
I know.
So we get a union going. I'll bring a union shop in. You were a Teamster.
I was a Teamster.
My father's still a Teamster. He's 86. He can come and organize this
Right.
shop. And then we'll go to the bosses and we'll say, put the air down. How
That's
about
right.
that? Okay.
Well, then we got to have someone who's actually specifically designed to turn the air down. So we have to hire another person.
Oh, we need
to hire someone.
electrical.
Electrical.
$100 grand.
$100 grand a year to pay him because,
Okay.
and plus we have to have someone to monitor the
That's
Oh,
true.
the phone is ringing. We're in
Monitor
trouble
the
now.
temperature.
That's true.
And then we have to have someone. There's a whole range of people that
Well,
we
then I
have
got to
to
plug these things in. I got to plug my own
that's an
computer in.
electrician. You can't do that because you're not qualified. You have not been certified as an electrician
The
to plug those
talent,
things.
the talent should
Right.
not have to plug their own computer.
That's right.
in.
And
Yes.
we need all that.
God, I didn't realize how bad this place was until.
That's right. We'll see how many people
to work, man.
putting people to work and see how many people the BBC here is putting out of jobs and employment and
You're the enemy, Slade. Slade
What are you
O'Brien,
doing in here?
Americans for Prosperity. Man, God.
I heard there was food and drink.
In any event, we deal with national security issues, as our listeners and viewers know, from 3 to 6.
See, hold on.
Oh,
The management has succumbed to our demands already.
See that?
The management has succumbed to our demands.
Just don't organize. I'll turn it down. I'll turn it down.
Just the mere threat of a union shop.
And see, the air gets magically put on.
I'm becoming a believer. Also, that Ruth Chris steak that you were talking about, wouldn't you
Yeah.
like some here in about a half hour?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we
Do
get
they
the
deliver?
what's it, Sikus? The servant.
See you.
CU, CIEU.
SIEU.
SIEIU.
Yeah, those
SEIU.
guys. We got to get those guys here because
Yeah.
we need food and nourishment too.
It's after
Maybe
5
some-
o'clock. Dude.
That's right.
They're on double time
That's
now, yeah.
true. That's true. What we're doing today, folks, the first hour we dealt with this union issue that you saw in the good state of Michigan yesterday. It's all over the news with Steven Crowder, the Fox correspondent, the young guy who does some edgy kind of work for Fox. He went in there just to ask some provocative questions like, what's wrong with somebody having a right to not join a union? And as a result, it's all over the news. The video's gone viral. And at the center of all of that is an organization called Americans for Prosperity. And we're fortunate to have the Florida director. Florida's probably one of the more significant states that you guys are operating in. We have Slade O'Brien, and we'll take calls. We're going to show the video to get a context for this, 888-565-1470. If you like unions, you can give us a call because we're going to fight with you on that. If you don't like them, you can give us a call and we'll let you fight with the people that like unions. But Slade, most important question. Where'd you get the name Slade? Where'd that come
It was
from?
my mother's. Good question. It was my mother's maiden name.
Oh, your mother's maiden
Oh,
name.
interesting.
And O'Brien is what, Irish?
Yes, it
Okay, man. You're coming with us afterwards. We're going to go have a...
We're gonna have a pint of Guinness.
No, we're wine drinkers.
Well, speak for
Oh
yourself.
no, you
Speak for yourself.
Yeah,
Irish,
Mr. World of Beers.
You're not Irish, are you? What are you?
Scottish.
Oh,
Scottish, no.
You guys fight, don't you? The Irish and
we
the
get along
Scot-
pretty well. It's the English that we're.
Oh, that's right.
That's right.
The ones who rule you. You're the dimmies for those guys.
The common enemy.
The conquestors. But the Queen Mother's okay. I mean, she's harmless, everybody. In any event, why don't you tell us a little bit about Americans for Prosperity, what the organization is, what you do, and then we'll get into the very important issue of the wrong direction this country's going.
Sure. Americans for Prosperity is a national grassroots organization. We have more than 2 million activists around the country. We're active in 37 states with boots on the ground and state directors. We believe essentially in 3 things. Limited government is defined by the Constitution of the United States, fiscal restraint, and that free markets provide the greatest path to prosperity for the most amount of people. We're a nonpartisan organization. We don't get involved in social issues. We don't get involved in foreign policy issues.
So
That's in a nutshell.
So you're a hate group. Then.
If you listen to the pundits on the left, that's exactly
Yeah.
what we are called. You know, and that brings up a little bit about what we're talking about today. Isn't it amazing how quickly this story has been tried to have been spun by the liberal media? I mean, it really is amazing. There's actual video of Steven Crowder getting punched. There's actually video of these union thugs surrounding this tent and screaming and yelling for 30 minutes before they tore down the tent, that they were going to tear down the tent. And now what you're seeing on some of these liberal blogs and out there is that they were provoked by Americans for Prosperity's activists who were literally in the tent surrounded by tons, of union activists. So, I mean, it's
Now, how did you get? What's your pilgrimage to AFP, Americans for Prosperity? And we had one of your guys, Scott Spages.
Oh, good guy.
Yeah, we had him on several times during the run-up to the campaign to get the word out, looking for volunteers and to get the message out. And he was always very careful to not be partisan, but we're very partisan, so don't mind us. But what's your run-up? What's your background, and why are you with AFP?
Sure. I guess from a very early age, I kind of learned and believed in the principles that this country was founded on. And as I worked or grew up with a father that was an entrepreneur that was in business for himself and trying to make a business successful, and seeing both the good parts about that and the struggles about that, it became more and more obvious to me that government was more of the problem and not the solution to success. And then at the same time, being a product of the public school system in Dade County growing up, really felt like, I was given one side of an argument on a continual basis. And when I got to college, I went out to Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas. It was kind of a little of an eye-opening experience to see sort of the other side of the ticket, and that led me to really care about politics. And I got involved in Ronald Reagan's campaign when I was a college student, and then went out and worked for 5 or 6 years in the real world. And an opportunity came up to get back sort of in the political game on a paid basis. Went to work for the Republican Party of Florida in 1993 and helped with their Victory 94 campaign. Then went out on my own for a while, and then was hired to be the first Florida director of an organization called Citizens for a Sound Economy. That was actually the parent organization to AFP. Was there for a few years, then went back out on my own again, and then in June of 2011 came back to AFP.
All right, let's clear up Chris Matthews' insanity last night. I don't know if you guys heard it.
No.
He had one of your guys on. He had one of the AFP guys, AFP. So I'm going to say it fast, but for the people driving in the car and people watching, FP, AFP, Americans for Prosperity. Last night, Chris Matthews had one of the representatives for AFP, and he said, "Oh, who pays your?" But I should tell Slade. Our team went to the presidential debate.
Yes.
And we had press passes, and we get in the bus, and Chris Matthews is sitting right behind us, yelling at somebody on the phone. The guy's a lunatic, right? Who pays your bill? Who pays your salary? And your guy just very nicely kept saying, Americans for Prosperity. Who pays your salary?
Here's a copy of the check. Right.
13 times
13.
he asked the guy, who pays your salary? And he wanted the answer, the Koch brothers, right? The Koch brothers. He thought he was revealing some big, hidden mystery or something.
Shaking star.
What is the relationship of the Koch brothers to AFP?
Sure. Charles and David Koch were two of the original founders of this organization. We were founded in 2004. They helped put the board together. They're on the board. And clearly they have a very big interest in the outcome of the work, the type of work that we do. They were also key founders of Cato. They were also key founders of several other conservative think tank type of organizations. We're the one organization that they are supportive of that really takes that conservative libertarian type mindset to the ground. We're more the grassroots side of it rather than the think tank side of it. But two very patriotic Americans that have really put their money where their mouth is as far as free markets are concerned, and really trying to help people up out of poverty to be successful. And the unfortunate reality is they're pretty vilified by the institutional left because they see organizations like Americans for Prosperity and people like the Koch brothers as a hindrance and a roadmap to their eventual socialist state in this country. And thank God for people like David and Charles Koch, as far as I'm concerned.
Our friends this morning, Brian and Steve, were doing a little segment on, as everybody is, on this video.
Right.
And Brian Craig, one of the talk show hosts here, watches a lot of PBS TV.
Right.
And he said on so many documentaries for National Geographic or whatever, you see the Koch brothers Foundation funding these educational things. I mean, they spread their money out. How come, Slade, used to be, maybe back in Ronald Reagan's day, which wasn't that long ago, you would see a wealthy person, like the Koch brothers or whomever, these wealthy Republicans, Mitt Romney, and you'd admire that person and aspire to be as successful in business one day. Now they're vilified. What culturally happened?
I think you're really looking at about 30 or 40 years of institutional takeover, primarily in the public schools, somewhat in the churches. But to expand on that, just this last week there was a video that came to light that Ed Asner, the actor,
played it here.
I mean, this is something that the California Teachers Unions actually paid to have made. So they've actually, they approved it. They signed off on it. That they want to put into schools that has rich people urinating on poor people. I mean, that's what's happened in this country. We've lost a culture war. We have allowed the left to basically completely demonize everything that's made America great.
Well, and here's the hypocrisy of it, is
Have it?
you got the people on the other side, like George Soros, who I despise everything about him as far as his politics are concerned. But, you know, as a successful businessman, okay, he can put his money wherever he wants to. But, you know, is he vilified by the left as an evil rich guy, or because he gives to their cause, it's okay, he's not evil, so therefore there's a standard. But yet they lump everybody in as evil rich people to, make some inane point that they're somehow stealing money from everybody else. Where
you
George
want-
Soros is not.
You want the left to think logically? Is that what you're saying, Mark? They need to think fairly
I'm
and
sorry.
logically?
I'm sorry,
I mean, all of our work, I'm sure you dealing with the left, there's about 5 minutes of understandable dialogue as they work through their talking points. And then once you get them, either they've expired the talking points or you've asked a secondary question, it's F you! Yeah, you're just this.
You're a
you're
hater.
And their
You're-
heads start to
They start to
explode.
explode.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
You can't confuse them with the facts. Then,
No,
then,
no,
then
no,
it becomes
no.
really ugly really quickly.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into hold that one. We'll do the 1 minute one of tearing down the AFP tent. And as he's setting this up, for our viewers out there, we're setting up a 1 minute video which shows Steven Crowder, the Fox correspondent, speaking to the union thugs and then asking them to stop tearing down this tent. And we've all seen these, like circus tents, the event tents out in large events where people get out of the sun, get out of the cold, have some refreshments, have their material set up. What were you guys doing there? This was an AFP tent. Why was it there?
Yeah, it was there in support of the legislature voting for the right to work passage, and it was it was actually right near where the governor's office was, and we knew that the left was going to come out and rally against the bill, and so we wanted to have some folks there that were actually encouraging the governor to go through and sign the bill. So
I know this is in Michigan. You have a group in Michigan, or you had to get them out there? Or?
no, these were local Michigan residents.
They're AFP people.
Absolutely.
So, and your guy on Chris Matthews,
Scott.
Or somebody, I think he kept saying that you have like a 3,000 or 30,000 donors. The Koch brothers just aren't writing checks to run the show.
Actually, he misspoke. We actually have 80,000 donors across the country. From as little as $5 up to
So you've built
$1 million
a network.
gifts.
You've built a
Absolutely.
network.
Absolutely.
And you file your tax returns, your 990s, all of that. So everything's out there in the public.
We're a 501c3 and a 501c4.
C4.
So the donors actually have to, they report and we report to the IRS, but those are not like the FEC for election, election committees where they actually are published. So it's a private donation.
Okay, now what you had your tent up there in support of the governor. For the audience that may not be aware, the governor, the legislature passed a bill, and was the governor signing it yesterday? Is that what it was?
Yes.
Okay, the bill was a right to work bill. Can you help us understand what that is?
The simple terminology there is it basically allows for an individual that is not in a union to basically say you can't take part of my salary for union dues. Right now in Michigan, the union, whether you're in the union or not, if you're in a union shop, they confiscate part of your salary to go to the union.
All right, let's walk through this for the audience. You get hired at a Ford Motor Company, say, and they're a union shop. They have a union in there for the workers. Right now, if you don't, you have an option to join or not join.
You can join or not.
But if you choose not to join, they still take your money.
Correct.
Okay.
They take it right out of your paycheck. You don't write the check to them. It's confiscated right out of your paycheck.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this new law said that no longer happens.
The new law says if you decide that you do not want your money to go to the unions, you don't have to allow it to go to the unions. You can keep it yourself.
Okay. Now I see the argument on the and it's called right to work without being involved in the union. If we had to take the elliptical question.
I can work here without being part of the union. And it also translates to, if you're a business and you want to hire folks, you don't have to hire union folks. You can hire people that are non-union folks.
Okay. So I see the argument on that side. The worker has the right to join or not join, and the employer has the right to hire somebody who wants to be in or not.
Correct.
What's the argument on the other side? The union, how do they justify saying, that lady, CJ, now works in the shipping department. She makes $500 a week, and $50 a week is going to come out to go for the union, whether she likes it or not. What's the justification
I
for
think
that?
$500 a week is a raise for me.
Yeah, of about $500 a week.
Yay! Yay for me. Take my 50. That's pretty good.
It's a $500 raise.
Ask me the question again. I'm
Yes.
sorry.
CJ goes to, because the pay is a little low here, CJ goes to Michigan, gets a job working for a company, and for Ford Motor Company, say, or General Motors. Let's use General Motors, okay?
Government motors.
Government Motors. She goes there. She chooses not to join the union, and she looks at her paycheck, and she sees $50 union dues. She goes, "What's that all about?" How does the union justify taking money from someone who doesn't want anything to do with them? How do they? What is their?
Well, what their argument would be is they would come back and say that you're benefiting because of our presence. You have a better health care package because of our presence. You have better working conditions because of our presence. If it wasn't for us, your life would not be as, your work experience life would not be as good as it is.
Okay.
And so therefore we're going to take the money from you whether you would like us to
Well, what's
take
wrong
it or
with that
not.
argument? What's wrong with that argument?
Well, I mean, I think that you have to look at it from several different angles. One is whether somebody else has created an environment for you or not, it's your money. And you also have to look at the unions themselves and how are they run and how are they organized. At the end of the day, it's kind of funny to me. You go through the whole Occupy movement, and I know you spent a lot of time down there, at some of those places, and they talk about the 1% so much. Well, I would argue that there's another 1% in this country, and that's the union bosses and the union leaders. I mean, your average union worker makes X. Your average union boss or leader makes X times about 5 or 6. We're dealing with an elite class of individual who is really about power and manipulating power and buying votes and everything that goes with it. That's an unhealthy situation in a free market environment, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm all for having a quality workplace. But when you've got that much power concentrated within a few people, and if you're an individual who just wants a job, and wants to do an honest day's work and an honest day's wage and take those wages home and spend them the way you'd like to spend them instead of how somebody else would like to spend them, and taking those dollars and putting into political campaigns that may not be your view. And see, that's what's really critical about this, because if you could direct the dollar, it might be a little bit different. But you don't get to direct the dollar. You don't get to decide which political candidate or which organization or which cause gets your money. And so you find that quite often you've got people that have complete philosophical differences with the union bosses and how they're spending the money, but they don't have an option to not give them the money.
Well, first of all, why should anybody's wages be confiscated in order to be given to a political campaign in the first place? That's not the job of what unions are there for. That doesn't have anything to do with the hours that you work or your collective bargaining with your boss or anything else.
It all comes down to power. If I came into a workplace and walked through the shop and said, okay, $50 from you, $50 from you, $50 from you, $50 from you, and went out and spent it on, name an issue, a social issue for sake of argument.
Right.
Probably half of that workforce would agree with what I'm doing and the other half wouldn't. Well, what gives me the right to take somebody else's money and spend it in that manner against their will? And that's really what it comes down to. It's, if you want to give. If you want to be part of the union, if you believe what they're doing, you believe in the causes they're working for, hey, scratch out that check.
Well,
More power to you, But if I have a philosophical difference with that, what right do you have to take more money out of my paycheck?
Well, it comes down to the philosophy too of that you didn't build it philosophy, you didn't build it attitude where you owe me something, where you need to pay me because of all the stuff I gave to you. See, the only reason you can get to work is because I built this thing for you. So therefore you owe me, and it's a never-ending filling pot where you always owe somebody.
Yeah, and it's one of those arguments that have some initial psychological appeal to it, some validity. Oh yeah, these guys have been here for 20 years, and they have clean toilets and all of that, and working together. They got the boss to do that, and I'm just walking in on my own. So I'm benefiting from this, so they're going to take my money. There's an initial logic to that. But then it breaks down in terms of the abuse of the power, the abuse of the money, the direction of the money, all of that. So if it's an either or, it's very clean to say, I don't want any part of it, like Michigan did yesterday. But guess what kind of life the non-union people are going to be living in a union shop?
Right.
Well,
What
There's going to be spitballs on the back of their heads.
Well, and that's where things like card check and some of the other things that the unions are trying to do right now comes down the path. If you're in a union shop and you're going to vote, or you're in a shop that's trying to organize, you have the right to try to organize. That's fine. Don't have a problem with that. But that ballot should be a secret ballot. You shouldn't have some guy standing over your shoulder while you're filling that out. Threatening you by intimidating you just by being there.
Right.
People shouldn't be able to come to your house with the vote card and come sit in your living room and hand it to you with 5 of their friends and say, "Okay, fill this out now." That's not right.
This is not much different than what's going on in Egypt right now with the Muslim Brotherhood.
Exactly.
Same tactics, same exact tactics, maybe, and the same thuggery. Thankfully nobody's being killed at this point. But Mark, and then Mike, after Mark's done, let's show the 1 minute piece.
I think it's real important to understand what is going on here is what you're doing is you're taking individual thought and individual responsibility. You're threatening, you're taking that away from people and pushing them into a system of the union ideas where there is no individual thought, there is no individual work ethic, there is no individual increaseness. It's all done for the group and the group thought and the group collective. So you're removing that responsibility to the individual and actually increasing the power of the people who say, we will tell you how to think. We will tell you what to do. We know better. We've been doing this for a long time. Just listen to us. We know what's best for you. And that's the whole leftist agenda. And that's the reason that the unions are afraid of this thing being pulled away, because now you're putting the money back in the hands of the individual and individual responsibility.
Right.
And
they're scared to death of people actually having a choice.
Yes.
Yep, because it breaks up the cabal. Right now on Trento Vision at 34 minutes past the hour on 12/12/12, Wednesday, December 12th, here with CJ, with J. Mark, with Mike, and with Slade from his mother's maiden name, O'Brien. We're going to take a look at what happened in Michigan at the State House and the tent that you will see being torn down. Do you have any idea how big that tent was?
No.
Pretty big. Somebody had said it was like, it was filled with a bunch of people and all of that. The tent that you are going to see being torn down was a tent put up by Slade's organization, Americans for Prosperity, a pro-capitalism, in support of the right to work law. They're exercising their First Amendment right, and the thugs did not like it. Let's take a look at what happens right now. You can hear a lot of... let it roll. Good.
What is it about right to work that you oppose so much? Whenever you're talking about right to work, it's because it's the freedom to freeload. They can suck all of the parasitical benefits and the hard wages that unions have negotiated, and they get it for free. Already destroyed one tent. Leave the tent alone. Get the out of my face. Don't tear down the tent. Get the out of my face. You hurt a lady in there. You're addressing me. I ain't hurt nobody. You hurt the out of my face. Back the fuck up. Stop tearing down the tent. Back the fuck up. Okay. You just assaulted me.
What that guy doing the card check? That's what I have in my mind. The card check.
He's got a gun!
Right now, a fight just broke out. One of the union thugs hit the Fox correspondent 4 times. And now the union guys are tearing down one of the event tents. Looks like it's pretty substantial. Probably 20 feet wide, 40 feet long. It's not a pup tent. It's a big event tent. They're just ripping it down. I mean, that's a criminal offense that's going on right there.
There were 2 propane tanks in there that were on when this came down.
Really?
Oh,
For
yeah,
heating.
yeah, for heating, for food, and for heating. You know, it could have ended up being a real disaster. I mean, people could have gotten hurt if the tent caught on fire. There were people underneath the tent. They were trapped underneath the tent. It could have been a much worse situation than it was.
Where were the union policemen?
They arrived a little bit late. From what I've been told, about 30 minutes after the tent actually came down, they showed up with their horses and sort of came through the sea of union members that were there and separated people out. But to my knowledge, there's been absolutely no arrests made in this at all. And like I said at the beginning of the interview, what you're seeing on the left-leaning blogs and coming out of the media in Michigan now is not really what took place there, but that somehow these union members were baited into this.
Yeah, how dare you
into
put
this
up a tent?
conversation,
How
right?
dare you put up a tent?
Right.
How dare you
So-
put in a city permit to register yourself to get a tent, to actually set it up and everything? How dare you do that?
It's like when Jewish people show up at a pro-Israel rally or something. Their presence is considered to be provocative, and therefore the Muslims who attack them are perfectly within their logical rights to riot and attack. Hello, because they're not responsible for themselves, of course. And how many times have we seen that?
Well, we
where
saw it up
somebody
in-
put up an Israeli flag somewhere and then was attacked for it, and then is told by the police or the local district attorney, well, what were you doing putting up a flag in a neighborhood where you knew that everybody hated Jews?
Or better yet, what about the guys going up to Dearborn, Michigan, to set up his signs in a free speech zone, and all of a sudden they're attacked by thousands of people being stoned with bricks, rocks, and crates being thrown, being hit in the heads. Where were the police? Why were you Christians going up there to cause problems?
Yeah.
It seems that on a regular basis, the people that really stand up for freedom in this country get attacked. They get attacked by the media. They get attacked by folks that don't believe in the same level of freedom that we believe in. They get attacked by leftist elected officials. And the unfortunate reality is that the media in this country doesn't really cover the story accurately. The false narrative continues to prevail over and over and over again, and it's really a shame. I mean, if you think about this law passing and being signed into law in Michigan. Michigan was the birthplace of the American Auto Workers Union. I mean, this is a significant. This isn't like it's happening, in some southern state.
Right.
This is the heart of union territory, and right where General Motors, right where Ford, right where the big auto companies are. And if you have enough elected officials in a state like Michigan to say, you know what? This isn't working for us. This isn't helping our economy. It's a distraction. It's been part and parcel of the problems in our state. If we're going to get our economy back on track, we're going to have to do something different. Here's a step that we're willing to take. That is a monumental shift, a big shift. And so, clearly you have some angry people there, and I get their anger, but I got to hand it to the Michigan legislature and the governor for standing up to this type of thuggery. And believe me, every one of those guys is going to be a target in the next election. And that's the case. It'd have been easy to walk away from this, but taking all that into account and still voting for this and saying, you know what, this is critical for our state to move forward. Is a great sign that maybe the results of early November are not going to be long-lasting in this country.
Exactly.
Okay, well,
It's-
I would jump on that,
Yeah,
believe me.
And
I would jump on
And
that.
it comes back,
From,
and it comes back to taking responsibility for your actions. You're responsible for your actions by not going there, but yet they're not responsible for their actions because of their violence. And it permeates the left and it accentuates what you're standing for.
This is in Lansing. This is the Detroit Free Press, how they're reporting on it. They say Michigan became the 24th right-to-work state in the blink of an eye Tuesday after the State House rushed through the legislation and Rick Snyder immediately signed it, capping a day of charged emotions, huge crowds, and mostly peaceful demonstrations. The speed with which the controversial legislation became law left organized labor and Democrats reeling. There's talk of legal challenges and recall efforts, but Democrat and labor leaders, this is a total Democrat
Yep,
movement.
yep.
Democrat and labor leaders said they're mostly focused on 2014 when they hope to regain control of the legislature and the governor's office in face of what they see as a Republican overreach. And they go on to say that the sleeping giant has been awakened. The AFL-CIO has been awakened. 12,500
They weren't awake
demonstrators.
already.
12,500 demonstrators were there. And the process began December 4, so nobody knew really what was going on. Today's the 12th, because we've been saying 12, 12, 12. So 8 days ago, the process started. When Snyder being the governor, announced publicly that the controversial issue was on the agenda in Lansing. By Thursday, Snyder, who had since taken office in 2011, had described right to work as too divisive and not on his agenda, bowed to pressure, the way they're saying it, from the conservative wing and announced the process was moving forward. 5 days later, the law was changed without a committee hearing and with little debate in the legislature. This is how they're saying it. Now they're going to fight it. The union's out. We're going to win in 2014. You have not seen the last of us.
Well, that's why Obama's flying
Let's
up
take
there.
a look at Scott Walker in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Wisconsin's a Democratic state. Scott Walker's a Republican. He ran for office on a radical, what the left would call a radical reform agenda. And then he did it. And the left went crazy. They did the same sort of thing you're seeing here. They
Yeah.
stormed the Capitol. They were in there for however many days.
Yeah.
The Democratic Senate in Wisconsin went to Illinois and hid for 40-something days.
Yeah.
You had recall votes. You had special elections. And every single time, the reformers won. Scott Walker ended up winning his recall election by a greater margin and with greater turnout than he won the original election. If you do the right thing, the public will support you and will put you back in office. You know, I think that these types of tactics by the left are going to backfire on them. I'd like to see this happen time and time again, in all honesty, because the more the average American sees the mentality of this group and the sort of the group thuggery that takes place, the more repulsed they're going to be by it, and the greater chance we have to sort of getting back to really who we are. And it's like Mike said over here, you know, we should be about individual responsibility and individual accountability, and get sort of away from this groupthink mentality.
Right. And let me ask you this. How can groups like Americans for Prosperity, and you have to move really quickly because 2014 is coming up pretty quick. What can you do? What can we do? What can activists be doing over the next 2 years to ensure that we have, you know, basically, we need cascading victories like this all over the country for the next 2 years, and that's really the only hope we have for turning things around. What's the plan if there is
State
one?
level,
If
yeah.
there isn't, what can we do to get something going?
Thanks for asking that question, actually. We in Florida with Americans for Prosperity actually have a plan that we came out with last June called 5 for Florida. It's 5 specific points, 5 specific policy areas that we feel that if they're implemented by the Florida legislature, will put a big billboard on our state that basically says we're open for business, we're going to treat you fairly, we're going to get you an answer quickly, we're going to eliminate corporate cronyism in this state, we're going to expand our educational choice in this state, and we're going to be an incubator for free market capitalism. Let's try to make Florida more like Hong Kong and less like Washington D.C.
Right.
And I think when you look at the results of this election, and so many of us are so disappointed about it because we had such big hopes.
Right.
But at the end of the day, what happened is nothing happened. You got the same guy in the White House. You still have the Republicans in control of the House, and you still have the Democrats in control of the Senate. So we didn't go back to 2008. We just continued on the path we've been in since 2010. Now, granted, that's an ugly path, but it's not the end of the world. We're headed that direction, and we might be picking up speed, but it's not the end of the world. But meanwhile, you look out at the states, and you've got a number of states that actually can be a role model for how to do this right. They can point to Washington, D.C. and show the largesse of government and the central planning and how it doesn't work, and how in various states around the country who are taking a much different approach, it is working. And you can tell it by unemployment rates. You can tell it by migration. I mean, people vote with their feet. They're going to go work. They're going to go live in the places that are more apt to be right.
Well, unless
less
they're
regular.
getting government checks
Right.
for staying home and
Well-
voting and doing nothing.
Well, and the problem with that in some of these states is, as Margaret Thatcher said, eventually you're going to run out of other people's money, and that's going to be a real problem for some of these states. And going back to the union thing, one of our 5 points in our plan, is the public unions. In Florida are a huge issue because it's an unsustainable pension program that you have. It's 85% funded, but it's funded and it's 85% funded based on a 7.5% return. Okay, well, hello. Have you looked at your statements lately? Who's getting a 7.5% return in the last 5 years? So it's going to be even more underfunded than it is, and we have to wake up to the reality of what we've done. Now, we've made deals with people, and my attitude is when you make a deal with somebody, you live up to your deal, but we don't need to keep throwing logs on a burning fire. We need to get smart about what we're doing going forward, and one of the things we're recommending is a really simple solution. Don't hire anybody else on a defined benefit program. Put them on a defined contribution program. Put them on 401k. I mean, you start to slowly chip away at your problem by doing that, and you take away the power of those old, powerful
that's the
public
key thing.
service unions.
That's the key thing, and that's one of the things. Even FDR was against public unions because it's a self-defeating prophecy. It's unsustainable, both politically and both financially.
What did Obama say? The private sector's doing fine. We need to get the public to
sector-
hire more people. And
Yeah.
why is that?
Right.
Because of the
Because he won't
power
hire
of the
unions.
government unions.
In Michigan, they had actually two bills, one for the public sector and one for the private.
Yeah.
Both passed, but the public sector they exempted out, so they're not part of this. And on the private side, they have all these roll-ins when contracts expire, all of that. So this wasn't just a sledgehammer; it was a phased-in program.
Yeah.
Now, Florida is a right-to-work without union state.
Correct.
Do you know of any? Yeah, I grew up in a Teamster, truck driving family, and there were abuses early in the century and in through the 40s and 50s. I can't conceive of a shop anywhere in the United States. This thing replaces unions. All you need to do is take a picture of what's going on. There'll be public outcry all over the place, and agencies will come in. Are there sweatshops operating or bad places in Florida that just
Yeah, I mean, to my knowledge, no. I mean, with American workers and the rules and regulations and restrictions that we have today, to my knowledge, no. That doesn't mean that there isn't some that might pop up someplace that we don't know about. You make a very good comment. There was a time and a place where the unions were really a necessity in this country. I mean, because the working conditions were deplorable. There wasn't any question about it. But we've come a long way as a country since then, and we've come a long way in the human race since then.
It's called China now.
Right. And the power that these organizations have built, just like any organization that builds power, the more power they get, the more opportunity to abuse that power comes to the forefront. And really that's what I see today so rampantly across the country, is that the infrastructure of so many people under one umbrella have just crippled business in the country. And on the public side, they're crippling, I mean, they're making property taxes go up. They're crippling local government. You know, the payouts on some of these things are absolutely astronomical when you think about it. I mean, take like a firefighter, and this is nothing against firefighters. Take a firefighter, for instance, that comes to work for a city or a county at age 20, works this 40 years, okay, retires at, say, $75,000 a year. All right, well, you can work that back, you know, for the 20 years he worked and come up with a price. All right, but he's going to be paid on retirement at 75 plus cost of living, blah, blah, blah. So over the next 20 years of his life, till he's 60 years old, he will be paid more money by the taxpayers of that city to not work than he was paid the entire time he was working for that city. That, you know, where's the logic in how that comes across?
And what it ends up doing, and this is what people don't understand, is what it ends up doing is it ends up taking away from the current officers who are working, because those funds are not there to pay the current officers the needed, you know, the new cars, the better weapons, the better surveillance. So it really degrades your security in the long run, and you lose at the end on all aspects of security and for the right of the officer to live a happy life, if you will.
I mean, we need to be able to pay, you know, public employees, especially, you know, your
First responders.
Your first responders. We need to be able to pay them a decent salary. You know, I mean, that's worth, you know, that makes them want to come to work. That makes them want to do this, and treat them in the right manner and give them the working conditions and the equipment and everything else they need to be successful. But we don't need to put ourselves in a situation where we break the bank of the city in doing so. And I think you can actually come up with a formula where they get paid more today, but it's their responsibility to save for their retirement than the other system.
like everybody else does.
But there's something that's counterintuitive here that doesn't work. We talk about the private sector where the big greedy owner, the business owner, is abusing the worker. Okay, we need a union. But then we have an electoral process to build a city. We elect leaders. We elect a mayor. These are people that have risen up through the academics, through whatever. They're highly refined, intelligent people. They hire city managers, and we would assume they would run the city properly.
Benignly.
Yeah. Why do we need a union to stand between an elected mayoral, city commission, city lawyers, all of that, to provide a good lifestyle and good employment package for public sector?
That was FDR's argument.
Is the city?
That was FDR's argument.
Is the city going to abuse?
evil?
Is the city going to abuse the? If it is, then we have federal laws that deal with that. There should be no union at all in the public sector. I mean, it makes no sense.
I know it's counterproductive.
But it's power. It's power.
It is power, and you know, the reality is, if you look at local elections, they're typically done not, you know, when the governor's elected, not when the president's elected. They're usually done off calendar, so you have a much smaller turnout. So there's fewer people that are electing these individuals, and when you have large special interest groups like public unions, they have a disproportionate influence on those particular elections.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, if you have to go to
30
the
seconds.
teachers' unions, if you have to go to the different unions to get your support to get to office, then when it comes contract time, guess what?
Yep.
You capitulate.
Yep.
You know, you're not dealing with the people at the Parks and Recs. You know, you're dealing with the public unions.
30 seconds, Mark. Then we got 30 seconds for you to wrap it up.
And well, here's a ridiculous argument. Okay, is if unions are such a great idea for the public sector, then why do we allow the Army to unionize? Why don't we allow the Navy to unionize? Why
good
don't we allow the
point.
military to unionize? I mean, we don't, because they don't need to. They have a lot of the same benefits and packages as our police officers and firefighters. It's ridiculous.
There's actually some people out there that would like to unionize the military. And I mean, seriously. And can you imagine the United States military unionized?
Unbelievable.
I mean, what would the demands be?
I know.
Well, we already know what the
Well,
demands are.
Slade, we're up against the clock. People want to get in touch with you.
Yeah, you can go to our website, AmericansForProsperityFlorida.org. You can sign up right on the website if you'd like to get legislative updates and alerts or get involved in some way, shape, or form. You know, I think what took place in Michigan this week is a fabulous step in the right direction for the economy, and hopefully will be a job creator in the state of Michigan. And you know, we look forward to seeing how it all works out.
Will you come back and give us an update and maybe go through the 5 points
Love
about
to.
Florida? All right, let's
Love
do
to.
that. But right now, folks, we're done for the day. 12-12-12. We'll never see it again in our lifetime. Thank you very much.
Disembodied had fun. Remember the disembodied?
Disembodied had fun.
Yeah.
And we are out of
And
here. See you
silent
later.
Mike might. Invisible Mike might see it. Thank you very much.